Hey, it is your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to go into a little bit more in depth so that they can understand if they're sort of dealing with a cerebral psychopath. When we talk about someone who is, a cerebral individual, it's basically meaning it's all in the head. There's a lot of mind games going on. There's a lot of sort of checks and balances going on. There's a lot of, weighing them against you, like right from the get go. Someone who is very much in their head, it's almost as if when you're talking to them, you can't have a conversation. All they're doing is spewing out all their thoughts, and you don't really interject, you don't discuss, you're not sharing. So it's very much like a one track or one sided thing, meaning it's all about the mind games, it's all about the mental points, it's all about sort of, click, check, they're just sort of keeping a checklist in their mind about what they've done for you and then what you've done for them. And it can be very insidious because it's wrought with mind games that it's basically based on manipulation. It's not true authentic communication, which doesn't have an an end. It's just an end in and of itself. In other words, it just is. It's not looking for any sort of outcome, any sort of win. It's just the relationship. Sure, I'm right about this. You're right about this. That's normal. It gets very abnormal and very dysfunctional when you're in a relationship where it's very, about these sort of mind games and trying to refute or cause a fight, just or going in, some sort of diatribe that doesn't even relate to anything that you're trying to share. Like you're trying to share something about yourself, and they go into some, tirade about, the history of manufacturing and, the pollution, and, you're like, I'm just talking about, getting a garden for my, it seems like way off track, and then you're irrelevant. What you even brought up just gets dismissed. You feel that they're just sort of talking to the air, and the cerebral is like all about the mind games. And when you're talking about someone who is psychopathic, it's like a cat and mouse. They're just going to try to plant, some sort of cheese route for you that basically takes you through a maze and then somewhere either to a lot of dead ends. You then try to get out of the dead ends, but then basically it exits out over the chute that sends you tumbling, 3 miles down the end of the cliff. I mean, that's just how they have it laid out for people. The cerebral psychopath, particularly in the workplace, appearing as if they're your best friend, your best buddy, giving you little clues, little tips, little insiders that no one else has shared. Wow, I might be gonna make it now, and then all these sort of illusions go through the mind, and you begin trusting this person and then doing different things. The next thing you know, they're talking and relaying that you did this and this, and it's just like a complete switch. Or in intimate or familial relationships, same thing. You don't, what's on their mind, you just don't have any clue. And it's even oftentimes it just feels very draining. You'll get mental fatigue, and that's all about the egoic space. It's all about the ego trying to fight and strike and survive for itself. It's trying to get a leg up. It's trying to get some sort of supply. It's trying to get things to go in their favor, or that you are resigned that they are better and you don't know anything. There's always going to be some sort of riff or gap, or some sort of unpleasant separation. And so person the cerebral psychopath has all sorts of games and things that they're going to be doing. It's almost like planting things in your path that get your attention. Trying to reroute where you look at things. Trying to check phone history, email history, things that they might like leave open. to make you pondering. Once again, scratching things in walls, holes places, things in their car that are this and this way that make it look like something happened, moving the sheets around as if something happened, moving the dishes around as if, there's all these different sort of then just sort of real brainwashing type of activities that they will go through that's very, very crazy, and it leads to a lot of confusion and a lot of paranoia and a lot of sort of, you become like a super sleuth, trying to figure out, and you become very suspicious. And it almost seems, but then it can become like a joke or a ridicule, and then like it can be entertaining then for some people in relationships, which is a bad entertainment because it's basically going to be at your expense. Um, and so when you get into the cerebral, you can just begin to feel that there's an absence of heart. In other words, there's trickery. They're trying to either overthink you, or just you just feel that it's all in the head, that there's maybe an absence of warmth, an absence of trust. You can't quite put your finger on it, but they just seem to be all in their head. They overthink things. They seem to be, very ingenious. They might have, this might be a real strength, so they might, channel it in their employment. But when it comes to personal relationships in the cerebral, psychopathy, they might rise up in their employer, often do. But cerebral, you might find that it's always a challenge. You can't just have a normal conversation. You have to, explain and justify yourself. That you're constantly, being, on the judge and jury. You're having to explain, on the daily, what you're doing, how you're feeling. It's just there. You always feel like you have to stick up for yourself. You can't just be. I think that's a real sign of a cerebral psychopath trying to get control, trying to get dominion, trying to get domination, where you just become so fatigued and then you succumb, just the constant berating, even if it's it's like the drop of water, that one drop of water doesn't hurt, but when it comes to be thousands and thousands, it can become, it can change your physiology. It becomes just relentless, and then people surrender, they give up, because of the constant, cerebral nature. And you need to not think. I would say you need to stop the overthinking, that comes as a result, trying to always process. Stop from the overthinking for some period of time, if you can, and just reduce that. Just come to a space in your heart where all that censorship, all that egoic chatter is just ceased. Oftentimes it's just meaningless. It'll take time. You need to go no contact for these people to, just basically go on their merry way. Just be disinterested, just be indifferent. It's the people who I think maybe in, this was in the workplace where, they just try to show, domination. They just start, touching stuff on your desk, touching your lunch, knocking the walls, doing, things with the shutters, just, moving stuff around, just, helping themselves, basically saying, I can move anything that I want in this place. There's a lot of this nonverbal talk that can be like a cerebral warfare, and then people get very scared because it seems to be a high level thought process, a lot of word salad, a lot of sort of, energetic communication that feels, very overwhelming, very daunting, something you've never experienced before. So you maybe don't know how to cope. So people are caught off guard. Don't tangle, don't mess, don't step in the boxing ring, don't interject, don't give eye contact, don't listen, don't get distracted. Just be still. Just be indifferent and be neutral and be still. Being still, even though it seems passive, oftentimes can be the next best step to removing and extracting yourself from the cerebral nature of a psychopath. just to get out of that sort of, you know, over over hyper arousal, just sort of the hyper domination, the that energy that is kind of sort of like the energy from a radio tower that's being scrambled. You know, it's coming at a very strong hertz, and it overrides your own inner voice, your own inner processing, your own inner focus. It's like a radio signal that tries to overpower yours in the airwaves, you know, and it just takes out your single signal. So you feel that you don't have a receptor. You don't, you're not able to think for yourself. You just feel that you're an open vessel for them to put their stuff in, and then you just to agree upon and then follow, as if what you have is not essential, not important, unfavorable, would unpleasant, however you have interpreted it and evaluated it for yourself. So, looking at the uprising of this sort of information age too, it can very much feel like that you have to think your way through it, think yourself to closure, think yourself out of it, think your way. That can just become more struggle. It can result in more anxiety, more just dragging yourself across the coals, and more fatigue, and more feeling of being drained and feeling powerless. That is disempowering for you to be in this cerebral psychopathic relationship where it's the games. They're coming at you in some sort of fake way, and you got to be fake back. They're coming at you in some intimidating way. You got to be puffed up back. And it's all this game. Sure, there's some degree of that politics in relationships or workplaces. What degree is it in your place? I'm not sure. But when it comes to a cerebral, it feels very heady. It feels, it doesn't feel very holy. It doesn't feel very heart based. It feels like it's maybe toxic. It's lacking substance, lacking nutrition. These things that cause a feeling of a gap or a void, or this negative pocket in a relationship, can very much just be as a matter in a cerebral psychopath relationship where they're devoid of emotion, they're devoid of fear, to use word salad to kind of create a new language for you, like a Rosetta Stone. Pretty soon you're talking word salad, you're back, and you're thinking you're growing, you're becoming funny, or however you interpret it, and Roger that, you try to become in tune with it, but it oftentimes is not a fit, and people try to force the fit. Then you become trying to be a force to this counter force, and then it can become real nightmarish, and people just succumb to it. They can't get their own power back. You've got to take your own power back. Very, very important. Go no contact, and stop with the thinking and trying to think like a psychopath. I think a lot of people, if they are used to this, either in a workplace, they're cutting corners. We should run the contract like this. We should do the account like that, and they're all kind of high-fiving, snickering, or whatever, cutting corners, cooking, whatever it is. Or it can be like, if you don't join the crowd, then you're an outsider. So you've got this sort of groupthink or peer pressure mentality, and you have to know better, though, in your heart. I mean, you don't hopefully don't have to go along with it, and you can just say no thank you and gracefully bow out. Problem once again, with the cerebral nature is, is if people have been with it so long that they have then picked up this sort of way of communicating or way of relating, and feel that they're special, or, they're on next level, and that they think that they want to continue to sort of be that way, as if they were still in this type of relationship. And that can be a frightening place to be, where people then kind of have a dissolution of identity. This is all part of the cerebral warfare that a psychopath, the word salad, the way they, I'm not going to go into it now, but it's just this combination of strange body language and comments. You know, the just the strange combination that are meant to sort of hyper arouse and get that going, where you're sort of, you derail your own organic thought and then you're distracted by what it is they're trying to communicate, and it kind of gets you stuck in your tracks, and then you become like a follower to the psychopath talk. And we can do more videos on that type of communication, where they sort of remove your regular style of communication and you begin sort of adopting theirs. For example, this might, try to then become like a leg, and then they'll just be like, you know, just stroking it and just saying, talking about an account, and then, that leader was super smooth. I had her gelled just right. Just different weird seductive communication. I'm not going to do that right now, but if you've ever witnessed it, I mean, you can observe how it's manipulative in nature, and just really, it's not a good, it's a disempowering place to be. Your mind is not supposed to be having those cerebral connections. It's like a drug that reroutes your normal, neural wire and firing, that process within. It's not supposed to be making those sort of connections, and it can become very sinister, very just sort of, it can get that psychopathic rage where they just get into that desirous predatory prey feeling, where they're just preying with language, on people. It's very, very bad. You have to be aware of it, and you'll know it because it's disempowering and it devalues you. Um, and so you can be able to kind of do a litmus test with that. Is it, empowering you to be clear and be a good person, or is it causing dispowering? Is it, corruption? You'll know it. And be rigorously honest with yourself. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful day.